Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Uncorked with Funny Wine Girl. This is Funny Wine Girl, aka Janine Luby, and May has been about growth. That is what the theme has been. I don't know if I've always been doing themes, although I guess I kind of like to do a theme just because it helps me kind of group my guests and help my listeners to know what's going on this month. April was National Humor Month, so you got to hear from a lot of different comedians that I work with, of course, female, because if you're just listening for the first time or you don't know much about my podcast, I do like to promote women. That's what I like to do. And I'd like to have a different theme. So, May, we started off talking to a woman who kind of changed her career path, but she still was inspired by her grandmother to start into the business of plants and horticulture. And we talked about the local farmers market in South Scranton and how that's growing and how it's a great way to get community together. And then if you listened last week, or if you haven't, I encourage you to go back. Donna Nelson is an empowerment coach, and she was a guest. And we talked about personal growth and how that comes from within, and really kind of shutting out the noise, because in this day and age with hustle culture, it's like, what can we do next? What can we do next? And then we're kind of not satisfied and overstressed. So this week, I'm talking to a young woman who I want to talk to her about her career growth. And also, because of the timing, I know she has some insights she can offer to graduates. This time of year is a really big time for college graduates and high school graduates. And I always like to say how I know my guest. So I know Megan from one of my side jobs, which is being a standardized patient, which I just came from a baby shower. And it's never ceases to amaze me how interested people are in standardized patient work, because it is pretty cool. We get to portray patients basically. And then, I like to give my body to science, because so far they've been the highest bidders. So basically they get to practice on our bodies because they're learning and they're, doctors to be. I met Megan there, she was a University of Scranton student, but also not just talking to her there. She has been very generous with her time and her talent. She came to a World Laughter Day event of mine, maybe even twice, and she filmed for me and she edited some videos for me. And then when I was working on my one woman show for the Scranton Fringe, she was again very generous with her time, helping me edit and giving me advice, because Megan has a long resume in theater from college and beyond. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to welcome Megan Esty to the show. Welcome, Megan.
Thank you so much for having me. What a wonderful introduction. Thank you.
Well, sure. Yeah, sometimes I just like babble on, but I love to talk about connections because I think it's neat how we meet people. And again, I always joke that I don't know if I'm an extroverted introvert or an introverted extrovert, but I do like to talk to people, especially I like to say when they're nice and they're not assholes. So when you get to talking to people, you don't know, you might meet them one day and you might still know them in your life in some capacity years later. And you might be able to exchange, and help one another out. So that's why I think it's always neat to talk about how we connect. And you were a young, well, not a, okay, you were young, you were a prodigy college student. No, you were a college student. So everybody who's in college is young to me, but you were going to the University of Scranton and you were doing standardized patient work. And that's how I met you. But your degree, tell us, is it theater and communications? I forget which one, but I know you did a lot of theater.
Yes, I was a double major in communications and theater.
And I think that seems to be a common one. I did journalism, which is part of communications, but it makes sense that you would be putting the two together. Did you find that worked well for you when you were doing it?
Yeah, it seemed like a way to do the best of both worlds, because communication, I had my film classes and my TV classes and learning how to be in a control room. And then theater, it was teaching me all about live performance. And some of those jobs, like the University of Scranton is really great because it's extremely hands-on. And it was interesting to see how like the different technical positions in theater, like what they were the equivalent of in the film world. And so I had a little bit of crossover, but it was nice to learn how both of them operated.
Yeah, that's really cool. Now, did you know? So let me ask you, did you know going into it, when you went into college, did you have this set in your mind and you stayed on this path, or did you change your mind while you were in school?
I always wanted to go into theater, and I was pretty sure that that's what I wanted to do. I got the communications major as well, more as like as safety net, because everybody was always like, oh, live theater, you're never going to have a career in that, like film is where the money is. And I was afraid, so I did both of them. And but my true love is absolutely live theater.
Well, and it's interesting you say that because you hear that about a lot of different degrees, right? Like English, writing, philosophy, all the like, I guess, softer skills. But you're a well-rounded person anyway when you come out, and you did as a smart thing, right? You thought, okay, so I'm going to learn both. But like you said, your true love is in theater. So you tell us a little bit about your experience, because I did get to see a couple shows that you were involved with. What was your role in the theater in University of Scranton when you were a college student?
Um, well, I started doing shows with the University of Scranton when I was in high school.
Okay.
And my first job over there, like production wise, was I was a spotlight operator. And then when I officially became a student, I you have to do production labs, and you can't just kind of stick to like, oh, I'm just going to continually do wardrobe, I'm going to continually do stage management, I'm only going to be an actor. Like the program makes you do every position. So I did a little bit of everything, and I also did work study in the costume shop, and that was like my job while I was in college. And I got a lot of experience doing that. Initially, I wanted to be a stage manager. I thought that was going to be where I ended up. And it turns out the wardrobe work was really what ended up being my job.
So let me ask you, because you think a lot of times when people think theater, they're like, okay, the spotlight, right? Being the star. So was that not something, did you not enjoy acting, or is that just your talent and your interests were elsewhere? So how did that work for you?
I did ballet most of my life, and I enjoyed it for a while. And then probably when I was a teenager, I was like, I don't think being on stage is for me. And I took ballet at Scranton Civic Ballet. And Rich Larson and Janice Tellier they were on the production team there, and I did ballet with their kids. And when they found out that I didn't want to do performing, they are actually the professors at the University of Scranton who do the theater program. And they were like, well, you don't have to just perform. Like there's a whole other set of jobs. And it was through them, that's when I learned like, oh, so I can still do theater and enjoy it, but I don't have to be on stage. And that was like perfect. That's exactly what I wanted.
And people probably don't realize, and I won't pretend that I know, because I don't know all the things that it does take to create these performances, that it's not just about the actor or whatever. So here there's this whole world of positions that need to be filled in order for that performance to happen. And so you got to learn all pretty much all of that, or most of it, right, when you were at the university?
Yeah. It's a lot of times people are so focused on the actors, which like they should be, they work hard and they're great and they tell the story well, but it's not, it's so much more than that. There's, you got your director, your assistant directors, you've got designers, you got the assistant to the designers, and there's the stage management team who works ungodly hours and does an insane amount of paperwork and make sure that everything goes well. And then there's wardrobe and props. There's the run crew who does like the scene transitions and make sure everything backstage is going smoothly. There's the scenic artists who paint the set, and there's dyers, people who just dye costumes and things like that. So it's a whole, it's just like a machine, and it's great. And so I did run crew, I did wardrobe, I did stage management, I think I did props at one point too. So I did a little bit of everything. Lighting, I did lighting, and sound, the soundboard operators, they also work really hard.
Well, I think would you agree that that's probably like a really great way for a young person to learn, because you get to see all, I mean, granted, you may not know enough about it to know if you love it, but you really get a taste of everything. It seems like it's pretty well balanced approach.
It is. And I encourage everyone, if you're gonna get into theater, to try and do a little bit of everything, because then you kind of also understand where other people are coming from, and when they want to make, you know, their design choices, and why something is such a small little detail so important to them, and what their workload is like. And also to not just tech wise, but it's important for technicians to try being on stage, and also for actors to work backstage as well. That is so important. We have to know how both sides of the curtain operate to be able to work together and respect each other, and understand what everybody is thinking.
That what you just said, honestly, that whole philosophy should, in my opinion, should be applied like to everything, right? To every like career, every company, because what you're saying is to understand, like, people, when I think so much comes from communication issues or lack of, we don't, we like, where you were yelling, but we're not really yelling at the person. We're not mad at the person, but we're frustrated, and they don't understand what we're doing. So they don't understand why we're frustrated, and maybe they're frustrated back. But what you just said, I mean, it would simplify, and it would really, I think, make relationships and everything so much better if we took turns standing in someone else's shoes to understand, so that then you're like, oh, I get why this is so stressful on their side of the curtain.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I ended up becoming like one of my strong suits, it was as a dresser. And a lot of times, you know, actors are they're putting their heart and soul into their performance and really feeling what their character is feeling. And sometimes they're drawing on like their own personal experiences, and it can be really emotional. And, you know, sometimes the next thing they have to go into is a quick change. And I'm there, and, you know, I'm the first one they see when they come off stage, and it's like, okay, great. And they're crying, and they're upset, and they don't get along with their castmate, and they're venting to you. And you're also kind of like their therapist, or you're like, I totally hear you. I understand. I know it's upsetting. I know it's frustrating, but put the sweater on. We have seconds. Like, can you please put the sweater on? So I actually really like that, because I understand where the actor is coming from, because I've done performing. I did ballet and things. And I like being there for them, but I get to do the tech side of it too.
That's really interesting. It's not, like you said, therapy. So you're using the technical skills, but the soft skills, the human skills of like, okay, I hear you, and now we just need to get you into this and get out and keep the show going. But that's a really neat position to be in. And I want to talk about your position now. But before we do that, I want to do a little chronological here, because you were at the U, but I want to talk briefly about, you had the opportunity to do your internship, right? Or one of them. I don't know if you had more than that, but I remember talking to you, and of course I was like, oh my gosh, anybody who's worked in New York, I'm always, very respectful and intrigued, because it's like, wow, that's the big city. That's where everything happens. You got to do an internship with I don't know the proper name of it. The last week, with John Oliver, I think. Is that right?
It's last week tonight with John Oliver. Yes.
So tell us a little bit about that experience. And of course, I love the fact that you said, of course, he knew Scranton references, of course. And as we know, he got involved with the whole train situation in the backyard at WNEP. Tell us about your experience there, what that was like.
That was a really wonderful experience too. It's the reason I ended up moving out to New York. And it was also very similar to my college experience, because I was, as an intern, they wanted us to also be really well-rounded. So some days I was working with the research department, and I was helping them look through things or watch videos and like accumulate facts. And then some days I was with the script department, where I was helping them print scripts and distribute them. And some days I was in the control room during the performance, just observing how that operated. Other days I would just be like a general like intern who, like, if they got a text message being like, we need this prop picked up at Bloomingdale's, or this costume piece picked up at Bloomingdale's, I would go and get it. So every day I was in a different department, so that when I came out of that internship, and I could I know where I wanted to fall in TV or film.
Now, so were you there during the time of when this whole WNEP train situation was going on, or was that after you? I feel like it might have been after.
No, it was actually before me.
Oh, before you. Okay.
Yeah. But the train saga was fantastic.
And so for those people who don't know, I don't know, and maybe Megan can tell us that WNEP has a train in their backyard, and it's, of course, anyone who lives in northeastern Pennsylvania and ever listens to the talk back, actually, I would encourage you to take it in small doses because you'll see some of the worst of humanity call in. But anyway, there's some nice calls. There's small percentage, but there's a train, and people were like talking about it. And John Oliver got a hold of this information somehow and actually talked about it on his show. And there's some kind of replica I think he even made or something, and it ended up over at the Trolley Museum in Scranton. But do you know more details on that, Megan?
I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, he heard the talk back 16 about the trains, and then he made the model train, and I know that it's got his face on it, and the
Yeah.
train will go through it. Yeah, I think that's about it. Yeah, and it was really funny. He was super interested in Scranton because I mean, back 16 is something else. It is it's something else.
It is something else indeed. Yeah. So when you were at with working with John Oliver at his show, did you get to interact with him? And only because, everyone's always interested in celebrities. So I'd ask you how that experience was, and if you were ever starstruck and run it and got the opportunity to see anyone that you were like, oh my God, like that was like a fangirl kind of moment.
I did get to interact with him. Towards the end of the internship, they held like little seminars where the different departments would come and we'd get lunch together, just us and the interns and them, and we could ask them questions. And the very last seminar was the executive producers, and it was him and Liz Stanton. And he actually he asked what all of us were interested in. I mentioned that I was interested in wardrobe, and he thought that was super cool. And he was like, that's a very important department, and they have mascots, or like the squirrel and the zebra, I believe. And he was talking about how Kayla Wold, the costume designer, worked really hard on those. And at the time, we were also doing the bit with the presidents, and we had a bunch of costumes, and we were dressing these mannequins. And so we talked a lot about that. Also, too, one day I was wheeling a costume rack, and it had a lot of costumes on it. And it kind of started, I was just me wheeling it by myself, and the back end of it started kind of fishtailing a little bit. And then all of a sudden it started straightening out. And when I looked back, he was helping me wheel the rack, which I thought was very nice because most performers wouldn't do that. They would let me struggle. So it was really nice. And then the only celebrity I think that came on when I was there was Gilbert Gottfried, who I was pretty excited because he's a legend. So I did see him around the building, and I was backstage with him like very briefly, but I didn't talk to him, and I didn't want to bother him. But we were there together, and it was magical.
Well, and God rest to, may he rest in peace. Yeah, you're right. He is iconic. I mean, a lot of people, yeah, definitely in comedy for sure. Well, and that's pretty cool. So that was a neat experience. And clearly that helped contribute to your experience and, learning a little bit about wardrobe even there. So we fast forward to you moved to New York. And before we talk about, I just want to talk a little bit before we get to your job, which I think is super cool. Tell us a little bit about, so you graduated, you head to New York City again. That's, you go from Scranton, which is not, for a town of 400, it's a decent size. Maybe we have 60, 70,000, but it's not New York. So it's a cultural transition. It's a big transition. As much as you want to share, how did that transition go for you? Because I know I'm sure there are growing pains, and then deciding what you want, where you really want to live, how you function in this big, busy city.
Yeah, it was hard. I truthfully never wanted to move to New York. I don't like it. It's overcrowded. Everything is so expensive. It's hot. The subways are terrifying. So I never wanted to move out there, but I knew it was like a good move career-wise. And then also I got this internship that was an incredible opportunity. So I moved. But it was for sure a shock. Like, one of the very first things I had to do when I got off the bus at Port Authority was get on a subway. And I was with my boyfriend, because he had already been out there, and he came and got me. And I remember trying to work the Metro card machine, and I just started crying because I was like, first of all, this is like $130 right out of my bank account immediately. And then I also couldn't figure out how to work the machine. And there was a line of people behind me who were like seasoned New Yorkers who were probably trying to like get where they were going super fast. And I had like 5 bags with me. It was awful. So that was like so stressful. And you come from like everything. I feel like everything in Scranton is pretty convenient. Like it's all kind of close, and like people drive. And people say like New York is so convenient, but I don't think it is. Everything is like a 40-minute train ride. No matter where you are, it's a 40-minute train ride. It's a 40-minute train ride. You probably have to transfer twice. The subway was terrifying. It was just like this loud metal machine with so many people on it. And yeah, I took up a friend on a sublet for 2 months in Brooklyn, and that was fine. And I was sharing, I had 2 roommates, and then the next apartment was in Queens, which was great. And I had 3 roommates. And at that point I moved in with my boyfriend, and I loved that apartment. That one was great. But then New York just started to become too much for me. It was too stressful, too loud. There was just too much going on. So we moved and are currently in Jersey City, which is a nice compromise. It could be a 10-minute train ride in, and it's just enough to like, I live outside the city. It's quiet. There's grass and trees. There's a park. It's great. Like, so, yeah. And, it's been, it's hard. Like, it's hard living out here. I had a survival job for a while, and was also working shows at night, trying to keep my resume going for wardrobe. And it's just like like you said earlier, the hustle culture, like constantly going, constantly being stressed. And but it is all worth it. When you get to where you want to be, it's so worth it.
And that's what I was going to say. That's what our listeners want to hear. But I mean, you do have to, like everything in life. And I think that's another important lesson, especially as young people graduate. I only taught for, well, I shouldn't say I only, but it was a long 7 years. I taught part-time in college for 7 years. And I would sometimes get frustrated with students because they want, like, they were going to get the job as soon as they got out of college. They were going to go work for ESPN, the guys that wanted to be sports anchors and all this stuff. And I remember one of the recent, she was then recent graduate who was on the local sports, and she came in and talked, and I loved what she had to say, because I always felt like I'm the teacher. I'm like, 20 years older than them, 25 years older. They don't necessarily maybe respect what I'm saying. Where this person graduated a few years ago, and she's telling them, take every job, take every opportunity to learn, and show a good work ethic. Excuse me. I'm only drinking coffee. Jesus, you'd think I'd have, well, I did have a mimosa at that baby shower. Okay. So she's saying, show a good work ethic, and be on time, be early, pay attention, be nice, all this stuff that I'm like, they needed to hear. So I guess my point I want to say is that, yeah, you had to do some shit. You had to go through stuff, but everybody does. Like, that's part of growth. That's part of life. It's rare that you get out and go, here's your dream job, enjoy it, and it's going to be fantastic, right? Because even, New York, that took a little bit of transition, right, for you to live there. And now you, like you said, you've got this kind of nice compromise.
Yeah. Before I moved out to New York, I knew it was going to be expensive. And I worked like 4 jobs at one time. Like, I was like every day of the week, and mornings and night. And then when I moved to New York, I knocked it down to 2 jobs, and it was like, okay, cool. But it's hard. It's a really hard thing. And, you think, okay, I'm out here now. It should be relatively easy. I've made it, but it's not. And unexpected things come up all the time. And apartment hunting is hard, and roommates are difficult, but it can be like really rewarding. I've like had, great jobs, and I've made great friends out here that I like would go insane without. So yeah, I mean, it was definitely a transition from I also feel like Scranton is a tiny little town,
Mm-hmm.
even though I know it's not, but compared to New York, it's pretty small.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, truthfully, you're right. Even though I say it's not like you're one main street kind of place, but there's that feel sometimes because it's like, you go somewhere and you're like, oh, so and so's my cousin. It's like it's everything. My mother's famous saying, and she probably gets mad when I say it, is you can't shit in Scranton, because basically you do something and someone's going to find out, or, like you're out and about. Oh, my cousin Sally saw you over at the VFW, blah, blah, blah. Like
Absolutely.
everybody knows everybody, which I mean, while it has its flaws, of course, it can also have its comfort as well. So everything's a give and take and where you want to be. But I want to talk to you about where you're at now. And I love that. So, of course, I'm a huge Seinfeld fan. Everything relates back to Seinfeld for me. So, of course, I'm thinking of the episode with the wig master on it. And he's like basically, brushing hair, and that's part of his job. And then the wardrobe person loans Kramer the coat from Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoats. And of course, he has a fedora on and looks like a pimp by the end of the show. But I think of, I see that, and I think of, I kind of connect that with you. I know you do much more than that, but so for people who don't know, you're involved in wardrobe and you are working now with the Metropolitan Opera House. Is that right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
tell me about the job that you have, and what you do, why you love it, all of that good stuff.
Yeah. So I am the shoe person. It's a technical name. Shoe person for the chorus men and women. And then sometimes I am a production supervisor, and I will fill in, like there's two people that I work with. One of them works for the chorus men's side and one of them works for the chorus women's side. If one of them is sick or on vacation or something, I can fill in for them, and attend like fittings or pick up repairs and stuff like that. So sometimes I'll fill in for them if they need it. But yeah, it's basically, so the Metropolitan Opera does repertoire shows. So they've done Madame Butterfly a lot, and like Figaro. So it's basically every time they do the show, it's pretty much the same costume pieces that they've had for decades. The cast will either reprise their role or they may change their role. And if they reprise their role, we just, try their old costume on them. If it still fits, great. If not, someone is there in the fitting to map out the alterations, and then the costume shop will do it. And then I will make sure that their shoes still fit and are still in good shape. And if they're not, I'm in charge of ordering new shoes and then fitting them in them. Does this size work? Do you want to size up? Do you want to size down? And then sometimes they have like new productions, and that's like a brand new build, like brand new design, new costumes, new shoes. And then I will help facilitate like the shoe fittings and making sure that they're comfortable. And then like sometimes the shoes are dance shoes and they have to get rubbered because the stage is slippery. So I'll take it over to the cobbler. His name is Johnny. Johnny will rubber the shoes. He's so nice. And we're doing Rake's Progress, and we had 16 new cast members. So I had to get the last scene of the opera is they're in an asylum, so their shoes are distressed like tennis shoes, kind of without laces. So I got a bunch of Vans, and they were brand like white Vans. We took the laces out. I fit them all in shoes, made sure that they got the appropriate size. And then I took them down to Johnny the cobbler, and he put elastic along the tongue so that way it would be secure without the laces. And then the next thing was to take them to the scenic department so that they could distress them and make them look like they had been in mud and like they were dirty. And then I take them down to the wardrobe supervisors, and I'm like, okay, let me know if they work. Let's see how it goes in rehearsal. And if there's a note, like one of them the other day, the elastic ripped, and they just took it back up to Johnny. He stitched it real fast, brought it back downstairs. I just facilitate the repairs and making sure everyone's comfortable.
Well, that, and who would think, like, can you imagine being a little girl growing up going, I'm going to be the shoe person at the Metropolitan Opera House? Like, that's pretty neat. Like, a lot of people probably out there don't even know that's something they could do, right?
Exactly. I didn't know. Like when they called me to do the shoes, I was like, oh yeah, okay. Like, I didn't think that it was going to be like so involved, like, but also I didn't know, I had never done opera really before. I'd only done theater. I didn't know that there were 81 chorus men and like 30 chorus women, you know, like I didn't realize that there was that many people. And that's not even the principals or the actor men and women. There's children too. So there's other departments that have like shoe people, but I just do the chorus men and women. But I didn't know that that was a job, and I love it. I'm so grateful.
That's awesome. So you were, but before this, so to back up a little, you were doing other jobs. Like you said, you were working, I know you were working jobs just like, so let's say not your dream jobs, but to pay the bills, but you were also working jobs in theater at night. So you were doing other wardrobe work, right? Before this.
Yes, I would do usually just like smaller scale new plays coming out, and a lot of times like I was the wardrobe supervisor, but I was also like just the only person on the wardrobe crew. It wasn't like big casts or anything, so it was pretty manageable. And then yeah, I came out with the intention of being just a dresser. I love doing quick changes. I love the adrenaline rush of like, are we going to get you out on stage in these 20 seconds? I think so. Like, you know, I love that, and that's what I wanted to do. And initially, I applied to be a dresser for the Metropolitan Opera, and I was going to be a dresser, but then the shoe position became available, and it was a full-time job. And so I applied for it. I interviewed for it. I got it, and I'm almost I like it a little bit more though, because I have like a normal 8:30 to 4:30 job, and I have weekends off. Sometimes you do overtime, sometimes you stay a little bit later, but I have my nights off and my weekends, and I didn't think that I was going to be able to work in theater and have like such a set schedule.
So it worked out well for you. I mean, so for, I mean, yeah, I mean, that's a pretty really unique kind of thing, but do you miss that adrenaline rush stuff? Or, I mean, I'm sure again, there's trade-offs so that you enjoyed that, but you're also, you said you didn't expect this kind of job and you're enjoying this too.
Yeah, sometimes I miss being a dresser, because it's fun to be there during the performance, and like there's a camaraderie that comes with that. But I also really love being the shoe person, because I get to work with both the chorus men side and the chorus women side, and then I get to like chit chat with like the scenic people and Johnny the cobbler, and so I'm all over the building, and I it's nice to see and chat with like other departments to see what they're doing, and I'm learning a lot. uh so it is kind of like a trade-off. I miss being a dresser sometimes, but this was like a nice job to have too.
And I mean, you're young, so I mean, you can go anywhere after this too. So you can move on to anything that you want to. And I'm sure this is a great thing on your resume. And that's what I wanted to ask. So you're in the union, right? This is like a union, equity union job.
I ATSI local 764. I actually just got initiated today. This
Oh,
morning I was sworn into the union.
congratulations.
Thank you. It is such a blessing. Yeah, this is a union job. You have to be union to work at the Metropolitan Opera. And I was just saying to Dan and my mom earlier, I remember when I worked at Auntie Anne's, someone had put me in contact with a wardrobe supervisor on Broadway, just to ask questions. And I remember sitting in that little office in the Auntie Anne's at the Steamtown Mall, and talking to them on the phone, and then being like, what is a union? Okay, how do I join the union? Oh my gosh, it's got all these benefits. Like you can have like a normal job in theater and like retire. What? Um, and to finally, like after all these years, like today when I was saying my oath to have made it, it's just like it was surreal. It was so surreal.
Wow. And so that sounds, it's not a cult, is it? No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, I don't know. I just feel like repeat after me. I was like, you got it. Like whatever you say.
But for people who don't know, or even young people who don't realize, this is like, it helps with job security, right? It helps with fair pay. It helps with like health benefits, things like that, right?
Absolutely. Yep. They will advocate for you. Yeah, it's everything. It's like your pension, your annuity, your wages, your health care. It's everything. It's to make sure that you're getting paid the correct amount. Because unfortunately, like a lot of people when you're freelancing and you're trying to make it out here, you know, I've taken wardrobe jobs that were like full scale musicals. And my pay was $300 for the entire run of the show,
Wow.
Like, and there was no like reimbursement for travel, for food, for whatever. That was my stipend. It was a whole month worth of work and it was insane hours. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna take the job because I need this on my resume. I need this maybe I'm gonna meet somebody who's gonna be able to be like, she's really a great worker, let's bring her on. And you're willing to do that because you don't know when the next gig is gonna be. But that would never fly in a union. In a union, that's not happening. Like you are so protected by the union. And I didn't know really what unions were about, and I know that there are people that are pro union and like anti union, but I didn't understand why. But it is truly such a good thing in this profession because people will try to unfortunately take advantage of you because you're scared and you have to survive out here.
Yeah. And you know, it's interesting, and that could be a whole different podcast, because when I was growing up, my dad talked a lot about unions. He worked for the Scranton Times, and there was like a printers union. And you know, when you think of history, like why they started, because people were working in unsafe conditions. They could be killed by machines. They weren't being paid fairly. They were working like ungodly 14 hours. So they served an absolute life-saving really purpose. But now, I mean, now there's different discussions of, you know, are people being, you know, asking for too much, or, you know, I mean, there's those kinds of conversations, and like anything, things get distorted or whatever. But like to your point, I think it is important, because kind of like with comedy, and I'm not going to try to make a parallel because I only do it for fun, right? I'm not going to New York City, but so many people, I'll see these shows and they'll have like 10 comedians, and I'm like, how the hell are you charging $5 at the door and you're having 10 comedians? Because you're not paying them. That's why, like, I do my shows the way I want to do them, because I'm like, I'm not working for a glass of wine and some chicken bites. Like, that's not fair, you know? And so someone who's young and needs experience, like it's that whole situation is ideal for people to be taken advantage of. So it is great that the union does exist for this purpose. And congratulations again. That's wonderful. It's got to feel really good that you've gotten that now.
It does. It does. I was like, it was a group initiation because there were so many of us. They were a little bit behind because of the pandemic. So they just swore, you know, it was in person. We all had masks on. They swore us all in at once. And I was with like 4 other people from the Met. And I was like getting a little choked up. I was like, I'm glad we're saying this all together because I'm super emotional right now. Because it just, like I said, I just kept thinking about being at one of my 4 jobs that I had when I was in Scranton, trying to save money to live out in New York, and thinking like, how do I get out there and how do I get what I want as fast as possible so I can be happy. And to, you know, I'm coming up on being out here 4 years in June. You know, I'm extremely lucky that it's only been this long, and I've hit a lot of my goals. And I know that that's not the way it is for everybody. So I'm so grateful. Everybody's always like, you're the happiest one at the Metropolitan Opera. And it's like, guys, you don't know what it's like out there anymore. It's so hard. I'm happy. I love it.
That's wonderful. And you've learned, obviously, so you still have to work in the city. So you've learned to kind of just, you take the train in, right? So you learn to just kind of deal with the, you know, the smells and the sights in the subway and the different things, because that's part of having this job, you know. Is there anything that you tell yourself to mentally prepare? Because you know that going home, you've got this little bit more green grass and like, you know, quieter, but obviously you have to get to the day, but you're also going to a job you like, which I'm glad that's something to look like you're looking forward to starting, you know, when you go to your job in the morning. Is there anything though that you do to kind of like get through the not so pretty stuff that you don't like or about the city?
Well, the train gives me a lot of anxiety. It's interesting though, because so I have to take what is the PATH train from New Jersey into World Trade Center, and it looks identical to a normal New York subway, but it is cleaner and it is quieter for some reason. And so then as soon as I transfer at World Trade and I have to get on the subway, the New York subway, my headphones go in, but nothing is playing. And I have a book on my lap, and I just hope no one tries to talk to me or I try to stay extremely alert of my surroundings, and keep tabs on who's coming in the subway and what's going on. I've seen fights and things, so I don't know if that anxiety will like ever go away, because I have friends who've worked out here much longer than me, and they're like, we're still a little scared. But having a job that I really like, knowing that that's at the end of the subway stop, it just makes it go by. I couldn't do it if I didn't have a job that I loved.
Yeah. And that's great. And I mean, what you're saying too is good advice for everyone to be like aware of their surroundings, because, as we're hearing different things, unfortunately, I think it's due to different mental health crises and different things going on. People being thrown in front of subway, and just like kind of a rise of really some kind of wacky stuff that's going on. So, I mean, but that's good advice anywhere. Just, be alert, right? Pay attention to where you're at and what's going on around you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But I think that's the great point is, and I'm so happy for you that you do like, okay, at the end of the subway, I enjoy my day, and this is why I'm doing it. And now you've been in this job for how long? This one that you have now?
I started in October.
Okay. So it's still with under a year.
Mm.
Do you have your next goal or ideas set of something or things, a general goal of like, before I die, or, over the next 20 years, jobs that you might want to have or consider having?
No, I really hope this is it. I
Really?
want it to be it. Yeah, because everybody, like, there are people that I work with now, like Johnny the cobbler. He's been there for 20 plus years. My supervisor, she's been there 20 years. A lot of the production supervisors, some of the milliners, she's been there for a long time. Like, I would love this to just be my career. I will do the shoes for the rest of my life, and that's what I want. And it's more like I'm willing to, like, I would love to give advice to anybody I can. I will help anybody that needs it. Just because, like, I had people who helped me, like I said, that wardrobe supervisor I was chatting with at Auntie Anne's, like, she answered all my questions. She didn't have to do that, so I'm happy where I am. I want to stay there until I retire. And now it's more like, I'll help anybody that needs it.
That's great. Well, it's funny. I want to say you've mentioned Johnny the cobbler a few times. So shout out to Johnny the cobbler. He obviously, you like this working with this guy because he's gotten a mention a couple times.
He's so nice. I work so closely with him because I do the shoes. So I swing by his little station so many times a day.
It makes sense. Of course, now in my head, I'm picturing like Beauty and the Beast, where she's like singing through the village, and there's the cobbler, and there's the, the fisherman, the fishmonger, whatever.
Yeah.
Well, that's wonderful. And I love that you said, because that's what it takes, right? Getting advice from other people too. And sometimes when we're young, and not even when we're young, as we're older, we still need to keep growing and learning. We don't know sometimes what we don't know. And the fact that you're willing to help because that's what you had, I think that is such a great point and such a wonderful, and I know you, and I know that's true to heart. You're a very sincere, generous person. Like I said, you helped me, and you were a busy student. You had other jobs going on. You helped me when you filmed at World Laughter Day and looked over my script of, my show. So you're a kind person. I know that you mean it. Before we wrap up, and again, I want to say congratulations again. I'm so happy for you. You're just one of these people. You're just a lovely person, and I really do wish you success. Is there anything else that you would like to say? Let me ask, I do have one more question for you though. Do you have any more interest in doing any community kind of, like, not for pay, but would you still do some maybe wardrobe work in like community theater, or are you not, you're just focused on your day job now, or what do you think about that?
I think though, now that I'm in the union, I don't think I can.
Oh, okay. All
I
right.
think that's like the level of protection, unless I could probably go to the union. I have to ask because, I just got initiated today, so I don't know all the rules, but I think I can go and get a waiver, and maybe like I have to get special permission from them, but I would totally do it. I'm happy. Like I said, I'll help anybody that needs it. You need somebody to be a dresser or do wardrobe, I'm here.
Yeah, because I was just thinking it's nice when you get the comfort and it's not just comfort. I'm blanking on the word, but you need to feel secure. The security of, okay, now you're in the union, now you have this job, just something for the side that just feeds your soul a little bit, a little creativity. And I know that Dan is creative as well, right? He's a writer.
Yeah.
So in closing, is there anything else that we didn't talk about, whether it's something to share with graduates or just anything that you would want to say?
For graduates, I really think that a lot of people are afraid to pursue what truly makes them happy, which is kind of, I, like we were talking about earlier, I knew I wanted to go into theater, but I had the safety net of communications. And there were a lot of people that did the shows with us at the U who wanted to be an actor or wanted to be a technician, but they were afraid of being able to make a living. And so they went into like nursing or teaching, and which is great. But I would say don't ever be afraid to pursue what you love, because you're going to have this job for the rest of your life. You gotta love it. And it's totally attainable. It's just a lot of hard work. It's a lot of hard work. It's not easy. Like, I worked like I said, 2 jobs at like almost 80 hours a week sometimes. And it was hard, but I am now in a great position and I'm so blessed. But just, you have to love what you do and don't be afraid. Just go for it. Just go for it and make sure you love it.
Yeah. And that's great advice. And I would say, I mean, that for graduates, and I would even add on because I'm at a different age in life. I just turned 50 in September. If you don't choose when you graduate, you could still choose later in life too. That's what I would just say too. Yeah. Just because it's, don't get to a point where you think, well, I've been doing this 20 years, I'm stuck. Don't ever feel stuck in life, because you're not going to be happy, and you deserve to be happy and fulfilled. And that happiness and fulfillment will spill out, or the miserableness will spill out, right? What we put out there. So yeah. And I should probably have mentioned at the top of the podcast that for anyone who might remember, if you're thinking Megan Esty, I've heard that name, Esty. Megan's mother, they're a creative family. Megan's mother is Julie Esty, and she has been a guest twice, and she does the Dunmore Cemetery tour, and she's a hoot and a half, and she does all these characters. And then she was on in February talking about local old historical love stories, which the Hat Pin Mystery, which I just love that. I want that to be like a novel, the Hat Pin Mystery. Can't you just see that?
It's a good one. That's a good story.
Isn't it? And I could see like you could totally do like the hats and stuff. And your mom, I mean, my God, she knows how to pull all the stuff together. She cracks me up every time I have a conversation with her. She's always into something.
Yeah, I know. She's great. She's also like, none of this would have happened if it wasn't for my mom. She's so creative. She's also into costuming, even like, doing the historical interpretation. She was always into what they were wearing. And she enrolled me in dance, which also is how I wouldn't have done any of this if it hadn't been for that.
And I think that, again, doesn't mean that you, like, if you have parents who aren't interested in the same things, that's okay too. But I think that, like you said, it played a role, because I know, Julie is very creative, and I could see her being very nurturing and encouraging of what you want to do. And you had a good role model there.
Yeah, I did. I'm so lucky. I'm so lucky. She's a great mom.
Well, see, shout out Julie. And we'll have Julie back on it. Julie is a hoot. I mean, just sit next to her and you just, I mean, she's usually crocheting and working on God knows what, her next project. But the Dunmores, for those of you who are local in the Scranton area, those come up in the fall, and you'll be hearing me promote those in October. Very interesting acting, but like historical and inside the cemetery, just really neat stuff that Julie does. So it's pretty cool. Well, I want to thank you so much for joining me, Megan. And again, I'm really truly happy for you. And what a nice day to have you on, that you were just inducted into the union. I really wish you a great career in this, and I wish you happiness there.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me on. This was such an honor to be asked to do this. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much.
That's so I love when people say that, because I'm like, really? It's just me and my little podcast here.
Oh, it's so wonderful. And you're also an incredibly creative and strong woman who does amazing things. So it is an honor.
Oh, stop, Megan. Yeah, my ego. No, thank you. Thank you. I do appreciate that. Thank you so much. No, I do like to promote women, like I said, and I love, like what you said, you're a young woman who's strong, and you worked hard, and you've got some great things of value that hopefully other young people will, and not just women, but other young men can learn from, and just know that you can dream and go after them. You do have to work hard, and hey, it's worth it at the end of that subway stop, right? It's worth it.
It's worth it at the end of the subway stop.
All right. Well, I want to thank my listeners for listening this week. This has been, let's see, May, the end of May. So I also want you to know, and I want to shout out, I'm going to do some extra stuff in a separate recording, that it has been 1 year since I started this podcast. Yeah, so May 18th was my first like mini test, and then May 24th was my first full length episode. So I am honored for anyone who's listened throughout the year. I am honored for anyone who's joined me as a guest. I'm proud and privileged. Oh my God, you talk about getting like, now I'm going to get choked up because for those of you who are interested ever maybe in trying to do a podcast or don't understand how this works, I'm far from an expert, trust me. But I will tell you, for someone like myself, we're not doing it for money. That's for sure. I think I've made $11 on ads from Anchor because I get a penny for every play. So I'm not doing this to get rich. I'm doing this because I want to share the stories of women like Megan, like Julie, like so many others, to help inspire, to put some more light into the world. So, oh God, now I'm going to make myself cry. So, it's a 1 year anniversary and I'm proud, and I hope you'll join me in the year ahead as I have more wonderful women who will share their stories to help inspire, help you to learn and laugh a little bit. So thank you again for listening. I appreciate you from the bottom of my heart and the bottom of my wine glass.